Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump keeps winning, and it's pretty amazing because he doesn't have, like, every element of society, from social media to MSNBC, CNN, The Washington Post, The New York Times, The Atlantic, Vanity Fair, Rolling Stone, The New Yorker, The Daily Beast, Esquire, did I say Esquire? Time Magazine, Mother Jones, The Nation, every director and producer in Hollywood, the entire record industry, intelligence operatives like Clapper and Comey and Strzok and McCabe and Brennan and Kleinsmith and all of these people. Then you have Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, Cheney, Kinzinger, Justin Amash, pretty much everybody against Trump. Jeff Sessions, Mitch McConnell here and there. Sometimes he's for Trump. I mean, the entire planet. Oh, then you have Macron and Trudeau and most foreign leaders, or a lot of foreign leaders. Who is standing with President Trump? Well, Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas issued, by the way, Iowa has a wonderful new law, so I congratulate the people of Iowa. There's something called the Second Amendment. We have the Bill of Rights. And usually, it's interesting. Justice Thomas grumbles over Trump's social media ban. Politico, CNN, Justice Clarence Thomas suggests U.S. should regulate. And then this was in addition to Supreme Court vacates ruling barring Trump from blocking Twitter critics. CNBC, Justice Thomas suggests regulating. Like utilities, it's interesting when you look. I'm not going to get too far into what Clarence Thomas, his opinion on the matter. It echoes President Trump's viewpoint. President Trump, because Clarence Thomas is a brilliant legal mind. You have to be brilliant, whether you're liberal or conservative on the Supreme Court. You have to be a brilliant scholar of the Constitution. The interesting thing about Clarence Thomas and the conservative perspective, which I think is the correct and moral and just perspective, so I think Clarence Thomas, on many issues, gives the moral and constitutional and truly brilliant viewpoints in his rulings. There used to be a mentality, a paradigm on the left. So hit subscribe right now, because I'm going to tell you, I used to be a lifelong Democrat. I support President Trump for a number of reasons, primarily foreign policy. He wants to end never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts. May 1st, 2021, the moral and just foreign policy to implement is bringing home Americans from never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts. May 1st, 2021, President Trump negotiated a deal to bring home Americans, in addition to the First Step Act and being the first president to step foot in North Korea and the Abraham Accords. So he's done great things. His social media presence, unfortunately, overshadowed a whole lot of his accomplishments. If you look at the Hunter Biden email laptop story, that was an actual, genuine, legitimate story that journalists, if you call yourself a journalist, you should have been discussing that. If you're a partisan hack, or if you are an extension of the Democratic Party, then you did everything possible not to discuss what you would have focused on if it were Donald Trump Jr. or Eric Trump or Ivanka Trump. If they left a laptop at a computer repair store, all you would hear from Time Magazine, CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, The New York Times, Vanity Fair, Esquire, Rolling Stone, all you'd hear about, you'd see the salacious photos, there would be endless discussion. Look what they're doing to look what one Republican is accused of. If he's guilty, give him the entire book. He deserves every legal consequence possible. But if he's not guilty, then the perpetrators who tried to perhaps set him up need to be found. And they need to experience the full legal consequences. But hit subscribe to this channel right now. I'm going to give you a unique perspective. Well, Clarence Thomas and President Trump and others, Republicans in general, are finally moving towards Trump's position. It's not just on this topic. It's a whole bunch of topics. What they're finally realizing is that the playing field is not level. There's not a level playing field. When you have social media algorithms that prevent you from talking about things that are detrimental or harmful to the Democratic Party, you're not dealing with a level playing field. You're dealing with Silicon Valley CEOs or tech, billionaires or millionaires or high-level managers, CFOs, CEOs, whatever, who will adopt one paradigm of thought. They will say that anything that is conjecture or hyperbole or gossip or hearsay about Trump is fair game. You can publish it. You can talk about it. You won't get a tweet removed. You won't get suspended. You won't get banned. But if, for example, right before November, there's a story that the New York Post breaks, oh my God, it's Russian interference, even though John Ratcliffe, the intelligence community at the time, said no, it wasn't. Notice the duplicity and the disingenuous nature of a great many Democratic politicians and journalists. They worship the intelligence community. They revere and worship these people. But when President Trump had his intel people, John Ratcliffe, the director of national intelligence, who took over eventually for James Clapper's old position, he stated there was no Russian interference. It wasn't hacked. The emails were almost certainly genuine. And it was a legitimate story. But see, again, they either prop up or, spew these lies that aren't true. And even if the revered intelligence community says, no, that's not true, the laptop had nothing to do with Putin, the Putins didn't touch that laptop, they say, okay, if you talk about it on Twitter or any other social media site or platform, you will be suspended or you'll get a strike or you'll get demonetized or whatever. What Democrats and a great many left-leaning advocates have done is they've said, okay, we don't have a leg to stand on in terms of morality. We are examples of the most immoral, unethical, in some cases criminal politicians. You can look at Clinton's email server with top secret intelligence. James Comey had to say, well, we couldn't find intent. He had to inject a legal standard that doesn't exist because 18 U.S. Code 793F, you don't need intent. If you have top secret intelligence on your computer right now, you better believe you've committed a crime. Special access program intelligence, not if your name is Clinton, though, or Madam Secretary, let's say. But there's a double standard. And media is now an extension. It's not an extreme statement or hyperbolic to say it's an extension of the Democratic Party. Maybe a couple years back, you could say, well, no, that's not true. It's not an extension of the Democratic Party. But look at what's taken place the past 5 years. Up until 2014, okay, you still had some semblance of objectivity. Maybe 2015, all of the journalistic standards or codes of behavior, you had some semblance of not to pat myself on the back, but when my articles were going viral and they were shared hundreds of thousands of times in the Huffington Post, Salon, and The Hill, they were shared hundreds of thousands of times because my arguments made sense. I backed them up with fact. And all the editors at those publications gave a stamp of approval, okay? I did not have the ability to self-publish at the Huffington Post, okay? I wrote an article saying that, it was an article explaining why three reasons why black men should open carry, utilize the Second Amendment. So after that article, they stopped there. I didn't have the ability to just self-publish, and all the editors read through my work at the Huffington Post and then published it. And then, well, so basically every one of my Bernie, every one of the Bernie segments that went viral in the Huffington Post, and then Salon came to me. And then I was already being published in The Hill. I was a contributor at The Hill. Every one of my articles were given a stamp of approval. But immediately, once I started gaining a following, the Daily Beast said, we have to write a hit piece on this person because he's an obstacle. So let's make him look bad, which they didn't. And so then you got Raw Story, all these publications, they couldn't stand that I was saying Bernie Sanders was a better choice. Hillary Clinton, had an FBI investigation, all of that. We've seen what's taken place since then. Bernie Sanders is a tool of the Democratic Party. It seems like he was practically in on it. He still has never acknowledged the DNC emails that forced Debbie Wasserman Schultz to resign, cheated him. And I was right. Clinton was going to lose. Democrats had no chance with Clinton. President Trump defeated Madam Secretary. What I was saying all throughout that election cycle turned out to be 100% accurate. I don't think that like an H.A. Goodman of 2016 couldn't gain a following in this day and age because they won't allow any. In 2015, I was given a voice to say, hey, the conventional Democratic Party viewpoint on politics makes no sense. And that was completely acceptable for editors on the left because my point resonated with a great many people, hundreds of thousands of people, and I was 100% right. Democrats lost, which is what I was warning them all throughout that election cycle. But that wouldn't be the case now. You wouldn't have anybody, whether it's Jimmy Dore simply saying let's vote for Medicare for all, or anybody that doesn't promote the party line, not only gets hit pieces but won't even be published. You will not get somebody like me published at the Huffington Post or Salon ever again. That will not happen on the left because everybody must think the same. You have virtually the same thought process from CNN, MSNBC, the $20 million venture capital people, The Atlantic. The Atlantic will just literally fabricate quotes that Trump is alleged to have stated and publish an article as if it were fact. And then Kamala Harris and Biden will utilize what is just gossip and hearsay, which was complete nonsense and made up, fabricated nonsense. They'll use that, and it will not be censored on social media. It will not be. You won't get your account suspended. But if you did the same thing, if Breitbart did the same thing and said that Biden disparaged fallen Americans, you better believe the fact-checking organizations they would never allow that. They would never allow that to resonate. Oh, Trump made a baseless claim based on a Breitbart article. And you wouldn't get suspended off of Twitter. You would, for example, if it was an article in a conservative publication that put words in Biden's mouth. And you certainly couldn't talk about a legitimate story that the New York Post broke. Okay? And if you call for really, really horrible things to take place against a Democrat, against a Republican or a Trump supporter, odds are you're not going to get suspended, but you will get suspended on Twitter if, for example, you discuss, and even Dorsey said, oh yeah, that was a mistake. There was no bias in that mistake. Well, of course there was. Of course there was. And so you're not dealing with a level playing field. But think about, you need every single conceivable advantage. You need every element of society propping up the Democratic Party. Otherwise, the country itself is a lot more conservative than media would have you believe. A lot more conservative. If you don't have the left or media in general believing one paradigm of thought, not even allowing journalists to write anything different, very few people. No, where were the articles in the Washington Post, the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, Vanity Fair, Esquire, The Atlantic, Rolling Stone, Time Magazine? Where were the articles defending Trump for 4 years, saying that he never worked with Russia? They were maybe a handful. Maybe the only publication, I'd say maybe the Washington Post. Very rarely you'd find the New York Times, but actually the New York Times, the New York Times won a lawsuit by, what was it? I forgot. It was the absurd defense, where they literally published information about Trump that was not true, but it was in the opinion section. So, but then there was, it was another lawsuit against the Washington Post, New York Times, that the information wasn't in the opinion section. I forgot, but all you had was 92% negative media coverage. You had one vantage point: Trump, Stormy, Trump, Zelensky, Trump, Putin, and it didn't deviate. It didn't deviate. It was, you can't even question, 3 days it took for the Iowa primary. You can't question. Suspicion. If you even show suspicion, you are then mocked or insulted, or, oh my God, you're working for Trump and you're labeled this, horrible human being. And what they do now is they disparage and insult and demean and try to undermine the messenger because they don't have the facts or logic and reason on their side. So now Trump is a despot. It's not just a Republican that you don't like. He's a despot, an authoritarian, and a tyrant, and he's likened to all the worst people in the history of mankind. And that's not suppressed on social media platforms. But if you say one word about a man who's one beer short of a six-pack or one fry short of a Happy Meal, oh my God, oh my goodness, you'll find your account suspended. They want to legislate sentiment and emotion, not just information. That's the point. They can't. The Democratic Party is a party of incremental change that's just they're somewhat more liberal than Republicans on 4 or 5 or 6 issues. That's it. They're not going to get their voters really passionate about anything. The Medicare for All, Green New Deal legislation, universal basic income, abolish all student loan debt, those voters are always going to be funneled back into the Democratic Party, and they're the engine of the Democratic. Well, I should say the engine is just people who are moderately more liberal. So the centrist Democrats, the I'm with her voters, run the Democratic Party. But without the left, which will always get funneled back, they lose every election. That doesn't happen because now, you have every single Trevor Noah, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, John Oliver, Saturday Night Live. You can't even enjoy yourself. If you say there was a banjo player for a rock band or a country band or whatever, he said one nice thing about a conservative journalist. Oh my God, he was ostracized. He had to take a leave of absence from the band. What happened to individuality? What happened to a punk mentality in music or rock and roll? Or what happened to just not caring what people think and using basic logic and reason? It is okay to have a viewpoint that praises a conservative journalist. It's okay to have a conservative viewpoint. It's okay to vote for President Trump. There's a moral reason to vote for President Trump. He didn't say both sides, or he never said the 1930s and 1940s Germans were fine people. That was a lie perpetuated by certain journalists. Go to the C-SPAN. Go to his actual quotes. He condemned the supremacists, and he condemned all the horrible, bigoted people. He used the word condemnation and condemned 3 different times, and then he did so the next day. Go to the C-SPAN quote. But see, again, he never called the pandemic a hoax. That's a lie also. But they believe it because they have nothing else to believe. They can't believe in policies because their policies are not transformative. So they have to create divisions, and they have to paint Trump as one of the worst despots of all time, even though he signed prison reform legislation and wants to remove Americans from never-ending conflict. Usually, that's the antithesis. That would be the antithesis of what a despot would do. But again, you're dealing with morally superior liberal Democrats who don't know much about, oftentimes, really don't have a grasp of history. They don't know. Everything's hyperbole. If they don't engage in hyperbole, they can't even get close to winning an argument. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Social media, Twitter is a cyber reality like Tron, the movie Tron, where absurd ideas gain traction and vapid like preaching about morality upon a soapbox of verbal refuse, which is what George Orwell called euphemisms. Like this is amplified, gains traction. Without Twitter and every single element of society propping up the Democratic Party, where would Democrats be? They have a slight majority in Congress now, and they still have every single possible advantage. Imagine if things were objective. Give me your thoughts below. Clarence Thomas basically sided with Trump on all of this. Yet another political victory for Trump. Give me your thoughts.